Now let's dive into our feature story of the day. Bitcoin will reach over $1 million, no doubt, says Animoca founder at the WebSummit Rio, Brazil conference. So let's break this baby down with this prediction. Welcome everyone joining the stream. Pump the likes and pump the stream. Here you go. Yatsu, the founder of Animoca Brands, spoke at WebSummit Rio April 16th on the panel titled Bitcoin's Revenge is Web3 making a comeback. I like that title, Bitcoin's Revenge. I may have to use that one of these thumbnail titles, just saying, here on the tube. But anyways, he said that he has no doubt that Bitcoin will reach 1 million per coin, quoting him here. I do believe that Bitcoin could reach over $1 million plus over time. But I believe not because it's a store of value, but because it will be one of the most important status symbols of the digital economy in the future. Do you hear that, Bored Yacht 8 Club guys out there who are flexing previous cycle with your Bored 8 Yacht Club NFTs? And now they've dumped whatever, 90, 95%. Bitcoin's the new status symbol. I agree with that sentiment. But I also think, obviously, it'll hit 1 million due to being the ultimate store value, right? Because what other asset class can you park your capital in that is unconfiscatable? Oh, that's right. There is none. Bitcoin's your only option. I think for that reason alone, we hit $1 million. And also being the greatest store of value to ever exist, let's not forget it has a finite limited supply, unlike gold, which they can continue digging from the earth, if you know what I mean. But anyways, Ambassador Christina Corner moderated the panel, and at which Ripple President Monica Long appeared alongside Sue, and Long emphasized the development of the crypto market is more important than the price of Bitcoin, quoting her here. I would say the more important place for us all to focus on is real utility for the assets. And that's what's going to drive long-term value and stability and liquidity for all the assets. In crypto, Long praised Brazil and said the country is one of the places where there is a real focus on crypto development, quoting them here. Brazil is a place where we are seeing breaking ground for that type of development. You have a government that is creating clear rules around virtual assets and a community of focused developers. And you have a traditional finance bank like Itaú that are a blessing to crypto. So that is a mix of a real focus on crypto. Now, Corner focused on the importance of Web3 for giving power to the people, especially those who do not have so many choices in society. Quoting her here, Web3 is about giving power to the people, to those who didn't have access to certain things. Well said. It does empower the people, agreed. As the panel moved on to Web3, Long highlighted that, in contrast to the other markets, there will be more maturity in Web3 companies this year. And equally important, this maturity is reflected in the current institutional adoption. Quoting her again, if you think about it, some of the biggest brands in financial services like Goldman, BlackRock, and Fidelity, they actually build their products and offerings in bear markets, meaning they see the big picture. So I think that's what's going to be very different this year, the institutional embrace. And clearly, that has been a major factor in difference this year thus far. Again, institutions now collectively hold over 900,000 Bitcoin, and it only took them roughly 90 days. Sue stated that financial inclusion and its effects, particularly on blockchain and Web3 games, are more important than the institutional adoption. Quoting them here, we look in places like the Philippines or even in some places in Latin America, millions of the people in the world who don't have a bank, don't have a university education, and in some cases don't even have a high school education, but now, though, have a crypto wallet. They are included in the new financial system, are becoming somewhat financially literate, taught through gaming, which is another form of play. Good point there. And regarding the spot Bitcoin ETFs, Long said, Ripple is working with the banks and payment companies around the world to use blockchain as a layer for a new infrastructure to make global money much more efficient. She noticed a greater interest in the crypto market from banks and has been wondering how to ensure regulated exposure to the market. Quoting her here, as here in Brazil, there's certainly a much stronger liftoff like Hong Kong, and that's another key market. I think one of the interesting things is that we are not done yet with the ETFs. Broadly speaking, meaning Bitcoin ETF is going to emerge in other markets. Now in Hong Kong, then there's Singapore, then there is Tokyo, there is London, there is Europe, and makes a great point. Let's freaking go, if you know what I mean. So there you have it. Let me know your thoughts on this 1 million Bitcoin price prediction. And shout out Francisco. I greatly appreciate you subscribing to the #1 daily Bitcoin pod. I also want to know, by what year do you think Bitcoin realistically taps that 7-figure milestone? Do you think that can happen this year in 2024, as some analysts such as Samson Mao of Jan 3 has been predicting? Do you think it may be this cycle peak, potentially, if not this year, the next year, 2025? Or do you think it'll be the next cycle, maybe 2028, 2029, 2030? Holla at your boy and let me know. Personally, I think a 1 million Bitcoin price is most realistically going to happen following cycle, meaning not from 2024 to 2028, but I think between 2028 in 2030. However, I'm still open to the possibility of it happening a lot sooner, because I know Bitcoin has no top, because fiat currency has no bottom. So hypothetically speaking, what if the US dollar were to hyperinflate over the course of the next couple of years, the cycle? Well, in that scenario, I could absolutely see hyper Bitcoinization, Bitcoin going crazy parabolic sooner than expected. However, if the dollar maintains its dominance as the primary currency of the world, and doesn't hyperinflate into infinity, then of course I think it's going to take a little longer. That is a big factor, right? Realistically speaking, hyperinflation can cause Bitcoin to go to $1 billion per coin. That's the synopsis of Jurrien Timmer's prediction, which we have shared here on the show a few times. Jurrien Timmer is the head of macro over at Fidelity, the $4.5 trillion asset manager. And they predicted ultimately, or Jurrien specifically, the head of macro over there, he said Bitcoin will hit $1 billion per coin by 2038. He ultimately saw Bitcoin go into like $1 million by 2030, and then the dollar hyperinflating, and then the value of the US dollar just skyrocketing, or not the dollar, but the value of Bitcoin skyrocketing because the dollar losing all of its value. So I want to know your thoughts on that as well. I am obviously very optimistic this halving. I truly believe we're going to have a multiple 6-figure Bitcoin price. And I know this halving is, we're only at 61,000. We're still below. We're still discounted from the previous halving all-time high, which we again saw back, I think it was November 10th of 2021, when we eclipsed roughly 69,000. Bitcoin is pumping right now, this moment. Pump it up, pump the likes, pump the stream. And you already know, 2 days until Bitcoin halving 2024. Exciting times. Obviously, a lot of bullish catalysts in the market. I shared yesterday, we're likely to see a supply shock sometime this year, according to the top analytic platforms. We have a very limited amount of Bitcoin on the exchanges even available at this time. Currently 1.8 million-ish in that ballpark. We've already witnessed a demand shock off the back of the ETFs. Shout out MPC3G. Appreciate the subscription. And so with the demand shock we already had, means mass demand in the market. We're also going to have a supply shock. Let's not forget, after the halving, the issuance of the Bitcoin gets cut in half to the miners. We're going to go from 900 Bitcoins being rewarded to the miners per day down to 450. More institutional demand. We already have, again, 900,000 Bitcoins being held by the U.S. institutions out of the 11 which were initially approved and released on January 11th. Now we're going to have the Hong Kong, already has 3 issuers. We're going to have the spot not only for Bitcoin, but also Ether, which is the first of its kind. Also, the Bitcoin ETF out of Hong Kong will be the first of its kind, because it's not the cash model, but you could actually purchase the ETF with Bitcoin, which makes it different. Then we have all the adoption, which will likely come out of all the other countries, which were mentioned, Malaysia, Singapore. Then you have El Salvador, a lot going on there. Then you have the nation state adoption. Then you have the nation secretly purchasing Bitcoin behind the scenes, potentially Qatar, Abu Dhabi, the UAE, maybe Iran, other countries in the Middle East. Yesterday, I shared a story of Iran could be mining some Bitcoin. We've shared stories of, Russia and the BRICS doing big things, getting into digital assets. I've shared stories of the largest oil company in the world out of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, recently partnering with the largest bank in Japan, SBI Holdings, to get into digital assets. We've also discussed Russia opening up a mining hub in Ethiopia. There's just so much bullishness, and there's so limited Bitcoin. You can never print more of it, right? There's so many I think there's 2,500 billionaires on planet Earth. Many of these people are smart. That's the smart money. We would consider these people the whales of society, and they understand Bitcoin at this point. Everyone affluent must understand the value proposition of Bitcoin. The only ones not adopting it are the ones who view it maybe as an enemy. And even the enemies of Bitcoin are stacking. For example, Vanguard, they openly say that Bitcoin, we don't believe in its ethics, like ultimately saying it's a Ponzi, we don't believe in it. But yet at the same time, Vanguard has so much indirect exposure to Bitcoin because it's one of the largest asset managers in the world alongside BlackRock. In fact, this is fact. You can look it up. Vanguard, the Bitcoin hater themselves, they're the largest shareholder of MicroStrategy, the first publicly traded company to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. They're the number one shareholder. The number two shareholder is BlackRock. So they all have direct or indirect exposure. I think all nations eventually will have direct or indirect exposure, and the price is going to go crazy. It has to. When you have a limited supply and massive demand, numbers go up. Hence, we coin Bitcoin, number go up. Technology, right? And Bitcoin has no top because fiat has no bottom, and there's a guarantee I can make. Though I can't guarantee a specific price prediction by a particular date, I can literally guarantee you that the purchasing power of the dollar is mathematically guaranteed to decrease as they continue to print money. And we know they're going to continue to print money because we know they're in a $35 trillion deficit. This is the only option. Now, on the back of that, the other side of that coin, pun intended, is Bitcoin is mathematically guaranteed to increase its purchasing power, just as it has been doing flawlessly over the past 15 years. For example, there was a time it would have cost thousands of Bitcoin to buy your dream house, or for example, your average house. Now, for a couple of Bitcoin, you can purchase a house, right? $120,000 house. Boom. There will be a time for 0.2 Bitcoin, you can purchase, $120,000 house. And there will be a time where you can purchase $1 million house for, 0.2 Bitcoin. And then eventually 0.1 Bitcoin, meaning the purchasing power is going to continue. And if you look at the charts on that, you look at the chart of Bitcoin versus the dollar since the inception of Bitcoin, that's the tale of the tape. That's all we need to know, right? So TA is great. We cover it every episode. It's entertaining. It's fun checking out the price action, where it's going to go next. But the bigger picture, supply, demand, stock to flow, limited supply, massive demand, incorruptible money, perfect money, pristine collateral, not only incorruptible, but also unconfiscatable. These are properties no other asset class have, which separate it from everything else. Also, it's the future. Is digital. Digital is the future. There's too many drawdowns and negatives to holding gold. Even the largest gold bug advocate in the world, Peter Schiff, don't even hold gold. So he doesn't even practice what he preaches. That'd be like somebody preaching. That'd be like Michael Saylor telling you to buy Bitcoin and not owning. Michael Saylor not owning any. That would be considered a hypocrite, would it not? Here's one thing I know as well. According to Michael Saylor, at least, and I have a lot of respect for the guy, of course. He's a smart man, and that's why we call him the Giga Chad. But he says, those who save in fiat currency, we have a name for those folks. What do we call them?
But most of the people who are buying assets at some point want to sell the assets at a profit.
Let me know if you agree with this sentiment.
People that use fiat.
What do we call them, folks? Bitwood Studios? I kind of like that one. It sounds cool. Bitwood Studios. I dig it.
Currency as a store of value.
Yep, drop it in the chat. What do we call them, folks?
We call them poor. We call them poor. People that use fiat currency
as a store of value, we call them, you already know.